Hello class, we're going to be looking at the quadratic formula today, and that's going to help us solve some of our quadratic equations. And there's also a small part of the quadratic formula called the discriminant that we're going to also look at so that it will tell us some more information without doing the actual solutions. Let's go ahead and take a look. So we've got my pen working? Here we go. All right, we've got the quadratic equation written in that form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So then if it's written in that form and we have a, b, and c written there, to solve for x, it's going to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of that is underneath the radical sign. And this whole big thing is over 2a. And that is what we call the quadratic formula. You've probably worked with it before. So let's go ahead and jump into some examples and see how that all works. So this first one, we have the trinomial 2x squared plus 2x minus 1, and it does equal 0. Remember, we do have to have these equal to 0. And let's identify our a, which is 2, and our b, which is also 2, and our c, which is negative 1. You always do want to keep that sign with it. So, and we want to put it in that formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So negative b, and b was 2, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 2, squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times a, which is 2. So now we're going to do some simplifying. I'm going to just keep that negative 2 here. We're going to do plus or minus the square root of, well, we've got 2 squared, which is 4, minus, and 4 times 2 is 8, times negative 1 is negative 8. So if I'm subtracting a negative 8, it's like adding a positive 8. And 2 times 2 in the denominator is 4. We're going to then combine those terms in the radical. So it's the square root of 12 over 4. And this can be simplified because 12 is the same as 4 times 3. The square root of 4 is 2, so it's 2 square roots of 3. And there's a 2, if we distribute this, that becomes negative 1/2. I'm running out of room here. Negative 1/2 plus or minus, and then we can distribute that there as well. We'll have the square root of 3 over 2. And that would be our solution. So let's take a look at another one. In this one, we've got x squared minus 2x plus 2. And let's identify our a, b, and c here. A is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 2, and c is equal to positive 2. So we're going to have negative b, so negative 2, plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is 2, all over 2 times 1. So a negative 2 is a positive 2, plus or minus the square root, and negative 2 squared is 4, and 4 times 1 times 2 is 8, so it's 4 minus 8, all over 2 times 1 is 2. So we'll come up with 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 over 2. Well, we know negative 4 is 2i, because the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of negative 1 is I over 2. And we can simplify this then into 2 divided by 2 is 1. And it's going to be plus or minus, and 2i divided by 2 is I. So it's 1 plus or minus I. The discriminant is part of that quadratic equation. It is the part that says b squared minus 4ac. It's that number that's underneath the radical, or we call it the radicand of the quadratic formula. Now, there's something special about that. If we just look at that discriminant, the b squared minus 4ac, if that number underneath the radical is greater than 0, that means that there's going to be 2 real solutions. If it's less than 0, then there's going to be 2 imaginary solutions, like we did with that last example there. We had 1 plus or minus I, imaginary solutions. And what gives us the 2 is that plus or minus. But if it's exactly 0, that means there is going to be only 1 real solution. So there will be times when that's all we're going to be doing is calculating the discriminant and determine how many solutions and what type they're going to be. So I still do need to know a, b, and c. A in this case on the x squared plus 6x plus 9 is going to be a is 1, b is 6, and c is 9. So the discriminant is b squared, so 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c is 9. So I have 36 minus, and 4 times 1 is 1, or I'm sorry, 4 times 1 is 4, and then 4 times 9 is 36, so 36 minus 36 is going to be 0. So if I look back at my notes there, I see that when b squared minus 4ac, or the discriminant, is equal to 0, I am going to have only 1 real solution. Let's do one more example. On this one, we've got 2x squared minus 7x minus 4, so my a is 2, my b is negative 7, and c is negative 4. So let's put those numbers into the discriminant. We're going to do b squared, so negative 7 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 4. Well, negative 7 squared is 49. And I'm going to take negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 times negative 4 is a positive 32. So I have 49 plus 32, so the discriminant is going to be 81. This is greater than 0, so I'm going to say that there are 2 real solutions. Oops.